last game was based on Vecta. That's a very Earth-like planet, very Earth-like architecture. And this time around, basically, we're going to the Helgen home planet. So basically, we really wanted to make sure that everything there kind of feels Helgen, kind of exhumed Helgenism in that extent. We really kind of went right down to the basis. First off, what do we know for certain? We know their dictatorship. It's kind of very much a kind of Stalinistic Russia, kind of Nazi Germany aspects of that. Mao's China, kind of all these kind of very kind of totalitarian regimes. So that's one thing that we had at our basis, and basically started kind of filtering up everything kind of based on that. So, their weapon manufacturers, how would they look? How would they organize themselves? What sort of weapons would they make? Would they make them really cheap? Would they make them really advanced? So we got all these kind of nuggets of information about what this kind of regime would look like, and started kind of putting together the whole picture of their world, their economy, their lifestyle, everything basically. The Helgens themselves, basically, with their kind of masks and their kind of harsh lines, their black outfits. It's a very kind of hostile, iconic enemy there, and we needed to make sure that basically we made a world that fitted them very well. So kind of looking at the architecture, we could have just kind of gone there and basically kind of make this thing look like East Germany, which would have fitted, but wouldn't necessarily kind of have gotten that fascistical approach, that kind of scariness into it. So we started kind of looking at kind of dressing basically the landscape, kind of any feel kind of overpowering, overwhelming, kind of like it's kind of lurching above you with a giant kind of animal with its claws kind of out to kind of get you. So every kind of building, every outline in the sky kind of needed to have that feeling where basically this is something that's kind of out to get you.
What adaptive music is taking orchestral music and making it adapt to the player's environment, adapt to how the player is tackling the level, the amount of enemies. And the way that we're doing it in particular is intensity based. So it'll switch intensities according to how fast the player moves through the environment or how slow he's taking on an encounter. The way that we're doing it is kind of like a DJ, which is like crossfading the streams. After a bar is done playing, lets the previous piece finish its bar before going into the next one, so it's a smooth transition. So you don't really feel it happening. You don't hear a skip or you don't hear a fade out. You're just hearing the transition from one into the other, but it's all within the same theme, within the same piece of music. So basically, it's like those subtle differences that kind of we took the approach of whether that music is going to influence the way that the player is going to play the game.
When we're looking at the Helgas, we got that that one striking image, the red eyes, the helmet, the mask, and it's very recognizable. It's a little bit too recognizable, and it's very kind of hard to break that mold. You can do lots with their body, but half the time you might not be seeing that because they might be hiding behind something. So we've been kind of looking. The first thing to look at was basically the shape of the helmet itself, kind of looking at different sort of angles, different shapes, things that would kind of stick out of their shoulders so that you can kind of recognize them by profile, but also kind of looking at the eyes themselves. So basically, this is the core of the Helgen look. Just 2 eyes, that's going to stay the same all the time. So looking at configurations of 3 eyes, 4 eyes, extra eyes on the side, just to kind of make sure that if you're kind of spotting them from a large distance and you see them, you can almost kind of go like, right, that's a sniper, that's a support trooper, that's a base soldier. Basically, you instantly recognize them. We've been looking at basically making these environments look more hostile, feel more hostile, and the one thing that our game director was really kind of high on, was like, it has to kind of be everywhere. It has to be in the weather, it has to be in the electricity systems, it has to be, everything has to kind of have this hostility. So we kind of went like, okay, well, this weather, the planet, we know it's got really bad weather. It's not storming all the time. It is storming all the time, but it's not raining all the time. It's quite arid, but it's wind-swept, constant electrical storms. And we really want to make sure that that was in the game, and it's not, that is not just basically somebody has to go in there and kind of place all these little things. It is actually almost kind of like an automatic system.
Well, the player can expect that huge change between going indoors and outdoors. The way that we did it was doing through like a raycast system that automatically detects whether you're inside or outside to adapt to make the sounds, if you're inside, to make the sounds shorter, if you're outside, to make the sounds longer and more echoey. Basically, we were focusing on all the immersion, the immersive aspect of it, of pushing sound, that to make sure that in the first-person experience, it would just change accordingly to every single space that you walk into in the game.
The engine that we now have is basically a lot more advanced already, even in the last year of development. Whole new systems have gotten online that we can allow us to kind of do much more better specularity. Wind has come online in the engine. The lightning model keeps improving and keeps going faster. So we had a lot of kind of spare performance lying around. We didn't have to kind of do the awful thing that is usually at the end of development, which is basically kind of cut all the nice things and make sure it runs. We could actually go like, oh, we have some spare performance here left. Let's put some extra stuff in. So especially the specularity model and the high frequency mapping that we now have, where basically you can get really close up to the OPX and the walls and will still have the grain there. You'll be able to kind of make out the individual kind of rocks in the concrete, the individual scratches in the metal. But also basically kind of everything has now a much more kind of alive feel because we've got a really good reflection model, which kind of allows us to kind of have kind of soft sheens on every surface, so that everything just looks a little bit greasy, a little bit wet, and it's not this kind of big shiny world now, but it's a slightly more dirty, wetter world.